Welcome back. Today is World Refugee Day, and we'll learn how organizations Airbnb.org and the International Organization for Migration provide crucial shelter to refugees and asylum seekers one home at a time. The director of Airbnb.org, Kristen Berlacher, and Amy Pope, the deputy director for management and reform at IOM, join me to discuss their efforts. Thank you both so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Now, Kristen, can you highlight the work Airbnb is doing to support refugees from Ukraine and Afghanistan?
Sure. So Airbnb.org is a separate nonprofit organization that was established to help provide housing for people who have been displaced by disasters and conflict. And specifically in Ukraine, we've been working with a number of partners, including IOM, to provide housing for more than 135,000 people so far.
And can you just expand, what parts of our country are actually offering, a lot of this support?
Sure. So we've had hosts all across the U.S. open their homes for people from Ukraine and many other conflicts, everything from, major cities to smaller local communities. It really is a nationwide effort.
Now, Amy, as someone who worked with an organization that focuses on migration, can you explain why this effort is so important?
There are more than 100 million people who are on the move today, and they are being displaced by a range of issues. Sometimes it's conflict, like the situation in Ukraine. Sometimes it's due to disasters, which were becoming more and more significant as a result of climate change. So it's absolutely critical that we have partnerships with key partners like Airbnb.org that help to provide very practical solutions to those most in need.
Now, I also really like to know, obviously housing is a huge necessity, but what are some other, areas of support that's needed for refugees?
From our point of view, it's often shelter is number one, but then we provide non-food items, so clothing, hygiene kits, allowing people to move with dignity. And often it's, frankly, cash donations, whether it's to Airbnb.org or IOM through our nonprofit organization, USA for IOM.
Now, I'm really glad that you mentioned that because I think a lot of people want to help out. And so they say we need to help give people shelter. But there's so much that makes a human, like you mentioned, like having access to food or even just like recognizing or acknowledging mental health. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that there's other areas of support that could be had, for refugees. Now, Kristen, what are some newer Airbnb initiatives that are in the works to support refugees?
Well, as Amy mentioned, we've been working together in Ukraine for over a year now. We're also responding to the situation in Turkey and Syria after the earthquakes, where a large population of people impacted were refugees as well. We've been working for a number of years supporting those displaced by the conflict in Venezuela, Syria, Haiti. So really, our work is global.
And I understand that there's a $2 million sponsorship initiative that supports expanded legal pathways. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So here in the U.S., there's a really exciting initiative underway where everyday people can get involved with sponsoring refugees who are arriving in the U.S. And we want to help make sure that having access to housing reduces some of those blockers to entry for people that are interested in sponsoring a refugee. So this new $2 million initiative will be helping provide that immediate temporary place to stay when refugees first arrive and when they're looking for that longer term accommodation.
That's amazing. And then how can people actually learn about that? Because I imagine that most people think the most that they can do is maybe like help out at a food drive or something. But I think it's amazing that they can actually offer way more support. So how can they actually learn about that?
Sure. Well, there's a number of really kind of more hands-on way to get involved with refugees in your own communities. It could be everything from volunteering with local organizations to, as you mentioned, becoming a sponsor through the State Department's new Welcome Corps initiative. And then also signing up to become a host and hosting refugees through Airbnb.org.
Now, Amy, I really, because of the organization that you work with, I really want to know, your opinions or just your thoughts on, I guess, how the average person doesn't tend to think about, the life of a refugee. We may see it on the news, but I think that a lot of people tend to, after they see the news, they go on about their lives. What can we do as just regular people to support and just acknowledge another life that somebody has?
Well, the most surefire way is to build a human connection. The more we see people engage, whether it's opening their homes or inviting someone to dinner or just being there to provide support, the more we see people recognize that refugees, people on the move, are just like all of us. And we can connect just as humans to humans. So I think that's absolutely critical in order to build the support we need for a growing problem around the world.
Now, I really want to touch on the partnership between Airbnb.org and IOM. I was very shocked to see, obviously, so many of us know about Airbnb, but I had no idea that they were doing like amazing work like this. Can you just explain how it's been critical to helping people in need? And I'd like to actually hear from both of you.
Well, if I start from just the perspective of the Ukraine response, where we had millions of people who were on the move being displaced within Ukraine and across its borders, Airbnb.org provided critical support to people who were extremely vulnerable. Many of them were women and children, many were elderly, and there were some people who had disabilities. So having an option for a dignified place to stay was key in just creating some peace of mind and allowing people to focus on other critical needs.
And Kristen, can you just
As
talk?
Amy mentioned,
Oh, yes, you can continue.
yeah, as Amy mentioned, when refugees are forced to flee, it's often that most immediate urgent need is finding a temporary place to stay. And so that's why Airbnb.org works with organizations like IOM and often with hosts who offer their space for free or at a discount. And not having to worry about housing, even temporarily, allows refugees to focus on other critical needs like medical care, social services. So, for instance, we had a guest named Alina who fled her home in Odessa with just a backpack after the war in Ukraine broke out. And IOM connected her to Airbnb.org hosts who not only opened their home to her, but also helped with things like groceries and doctor's appointments, really giving her a sense of connection and community, that human element that I think is so important when people have been uprooted from their homes and separated from their families.
And then can you just tell us, how does it feel to be part of an organization that, everyone loves Airbnb because of, the joy and the freedom that it gives when going on vacations, but they're doing some really amazing work and, just like making a difference in our community. So how does it feel to be a part of that?
Well, it's definitely an honor. I've been with the organization for almost 9 years now, and I can say that it really is our hosts, our partners like IOM and donors that have made this work possible.
Well, I want to thank you both so much for joining me. I definitely learned a lot, about World Refugee Day and, just the importance that, organizations around, our country are doing to support these people. So thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. We have more open for you right after this.